My friends, let me begin with a truth that may sound uncomfortable. When two giants collide, the earth shakes. But when they choose to walk side by side, they can move mountains. Today, the world is watching a collision. The United States of America and the Republic of India, two nations with vast histories, proud cultures, booming economies, yet caught in a storm of mistrust, tariffs, and power games. Now, let me be clear. This conflict didn't happen overnight. It is the product of years of rising ambitions, shifting alliances, and the cold calculations of global power. On one side, America, determined to protect its industries, its workers, its influence. On the other, India, eager to claim its place as a global leader, unwilling to bow, unwilling to bend. And at the heart of it lies a question. Will this be a century of cooperation or a century of confrontation? Oh, pause, because here's the fact. The US and India are not just two players on a chessboard. Together, they represent more than a quarter of humanity. Their trade ties, their defense ties, their shared democratic values, they should be the bedrock of partnership. Yet, instead, tariffs rise, trust falls, and suspicions deepen. And as America imposes new trade restrictions, as India turns to China for economic breathing room, the world sees fault lines deepen. Washington whispers of unfair practices. New Delhi cries of double standards, and the space between them grows wider day by day. But let's not fool ourselves. This isn't just about tariffs or steel or technology. This is about identity. It's about pride. America believes it must remain the anchor of the global order. India believes it has earned the right to lead in that same order. And so, two democracies that should be allies are instead standing toe to toe, fists clenched. Yet here's what history teaches us. When pride becomes larger than purpose, nations stumble. When ego outweighs strategy, people pay the price. Farmers, factory workers, young students, all of them become casualties in a conflict they never chose. Now, let me say this as clearly as I can. Neither America nor India can afford to walk this path much longer. Because if they fight, they both bleed. But if they cooperate, they both rise. A long pause. And so the question before us is not whether conflict exists. We can all see that. The question is, how do we turn this conflict into opportunity? How do we replace tariffs with trust, suspicion with strategy, rivalry with respect? That, my friends, is the challenge of our time. And tonight, I want to walk you through not just the roots of this crisis, but also the roads that lie ahead. Roads that can lead us to confrontation or cooperation. Because the turning point is here. And the world is waiting to see, will America and India find a way to rise together or fall apart? My friends, history has a way of reminding us that conflicts don't just appear out of thin air. They are born from choices, from policies, from ambitions that collide. And if we want to understand why the United States and India are standing in conflict today, we have to look back. Let us rewind not just 5 years, not just 10, but to the very beginning of their relationship. After India's independence in 1947, America saw a young democracy emerging in Asia. But the Cold War was raging. Washington leaned toward Pakistan. India leaned toward Moscow. Distrust was born. And for decades, the two nations lived in different orbits. America armed Pakistan. India traded with the Soviet Union. Suspicion became the norm. Fast forward to the 1990s. The Cold War ends. The Soviet Union collapses. And suddenly, America needs new allies. India opens its economy. The world watches as 1 billion people step into the global market. Washington sees opportunity, and a new chapter begins. A pause. In 2005, the US-India Civil Nuclear Agreement is signed. A milestone. A handshake that symbolized trust. Washington gave New Delhi access to nuclear technology. New Delhi promised to stand closer to Washington's vision of the world. For a moment, it seemed like partnership had triumphed over suspicion. But history rarely moves in straight lines. Trade became the battlefield. America wanted access to India's booming markets. India wanted recognition as a global power. America complained about tariffs, intellectual property theft, and protectionism. India complained about double standards, about being treated like a junior partner instead of an equal. And then came China. A long pause. Well, China's rise was not just an economic story, it was a geopolitical earthquake. Washington looked to New Delhi as a counterweight. India looked to Washington for technology, defense, and investment. On paper, they needed each other. But in practice, both had doubts. America feared India's protectionism. India feared America's shifting loyalties. Washington was willing to sell weapons, but hesitant to give India a seat at the global table. New Delhi, proud and ambitious, refused to be treated as second tier, and then came the trade war. In 2018, Washington, under Donald Trump, imposed tariffs on steel and aluminum. India retaliated with tariffs on American goods, apples, almonds, motorcycles. The spiral began. And while Joe Biden softened the tone, the fundamental issues remained. Because this isn't just about trade, it's about technology. It's about leadership in the 21st century economy. America fears India's push for digital sovereignty. India fears America's dominance in big tech. Washington wants open markets. New Delhi wants to protect its own giants. So what do we see? Two democracies, allies on paper, locked in a silent economic war. I'll pause, but here's the deeper truth. This conflict is not only about economics, it's about geopolitics. America's grand strategy has always been clear: remain the world's anchor, the power that shapes global rules. India's dream is equally clear to rise as a leader of the global South. To prove that its time has come, these visions are not necessarily in conflict. But when neither side is willing to bend, visions collide. Look at the Indo-Pacific. Washington builds alliances. Japan, Australia, South Korea, India joins the Quad, yes. But quietly, India also buys oil from Russia. It trades with China despite border clashes. It refuses to choose sides. And Washington doesn't like that. Look at defense. America sells billions in arms to India. But India still relies on Russian weapons. Washington whispers, "You can't have it both ways." New Delhi replies, "We will not be told who to trust." And so, mistrust deepens. Long pause. Oh, now let us be very clear. This is not just a US-India conflict. This is about how the world is shifting. America sees its influence tested by China, by Russia, by a multipolar order. India sees its opportunity, an opening to claim leadership among emerging nations. But here's the irony. Instead of walking together, they are pushing each other away. America imposes tariffs. India turns to China. Washington questions India's loyalty. New Delhi questions America's reliability. And the result, a partnership that should have been unshakable, begins to crack. Now let us think about consequences. If America and India keep clashing on trade, technology, and geopolitics, who benefits? Not Washington, not New Delhi, but Beijing. China stands ready to welcome India's markets, ready to exploit the cracks in US-India trust. And every tariff, every disagreement, every broken promise pushes India a little closer to Beijing's orbit. A pause, and let's talk about pride. Because at the heart of this, my friends, is not economics, not geopolitics, but pride. America wants to be respected as the global leader. India wants to be respected as an equal. When either side feels disrespected, the partnership collapses. This is the tragedy of our moment. Two democracies that share values, that share interests, that share challenges, from climate change to terrorism to global stability, are letting pride drive them toward rivalry. And so we arrive at today, a relationship filled with speeches about friendship, but poisoned by mistrust, a partnership built on promises, but weakened by suspicion. Now, we must ask what comes next. Because if they continue on this path, America and India risk creating not just a trade war, but a strategic split. A split that would reshape the global order, weaken democracy's hand, and empower authoritarian powers. And that is the cost of conflict. A long pause, but there is another path, a path where America and India rise together, where tariffs are replaced with cooperation, where mistrust is replaced with respect, where pride gives way to partnership. The question is, will they choose it? My friends, when nations stand at crossroads, they face two roads, two futures, two destinies. And today, the United States and India are staring down those very roads. One leads to rivalry, the other to partnership. Let us imagine what happens if they choose conflict. And then, what happens if they choose cooperation? Picture this: Washington doubles down on tariffs. New Delhi retaliates. What began as a trade dispute spirals into a full economic war. American tech companies are pushed out of Indian markets. India builds firewalls around its digital economy. The dream of a free, open Indo-Pacific begins to fracture. A pause. And while the two democracies fight each other, China smiles. Because every time India turns away from Washington, Beijing steps in with offers of trade, infrastructure, and investment, and slowly, carefully, India drifts into China's embrace, not because it trusts Beijing, not because it loves Beijing, but because America pushed too hard. Now, imagine defense. America grows impatient with India's reliance on Russian weapons. India grows resentful of America's lectures. Washington delays technology transfers. New Delhi accelerates its deals with Moscow. The Quad, meant to contain China, loses credibility. The Indo-Pacific becomes less stable, not more. And what about global leadership? If America sidelines India, India will not sit quietly. It will not wait for recognition. It will build its own alliances through Bryce S., through the Global South, through organizations that exclude Washington. And the result will be a fractured world order. A long pause. But here's the deepest cost: trust. If the United States and India fall into rivalry, they will not just lose trade. They will not just lose defense ties. They will lose trust in democracy itself. Because millions across the Global South will look at these two nations, two democracies, and ask, if they cannot stand together, how can democracy compete with authoritarian unity? And that, my friends, would be a tragedy not just for Washington and New Delhi, but for the entire world. But let us imagine the other road. Imagine Washington setting aside arrogance, treating India not as a junior partner, but as an equal. Imagine New Delhi setting aside suspicion, trusting that America's partnership is real. Trade wars replaced with trade deals. Instead of tariffs, they build bridges of commerce. American companies investing in India's digital revolution. Indian companies bringing innovation to American markets. Pause. Technology becomes a field of cooperation, not conflict. Together, they build rules for artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and digital trade that protect freedom, not exploitation. Instead of walls, they build highways of knowledge. And in defense, imagine this. Washington shares not just weapons, but technology. New Delhi becomes a hub for joint innovation. Together, they ensure that the Indo-Pacific remains free, open, and stable. And geopolitically, a united front of the world's two largest democracies sends a powerful message to Beijing, to Moscow, to every authoritarian power watching, a message that says democracy can adapt, democracy can lead, democracy can deliver. A long pause, but beyond strategy, beyond economics, there is something deeper. When America and India cooperate, they show billions of people across Asia, Africa, and beyond that partnership is possible. That nations can rise together, not at each other's expense. That democracy is not just speeches and ballots, but real cooperation that delivers prosperity and peace. And the consequences? A global order where America does not stand alone, where India does not stand isolated, but where both stand together, lifting not just themselves, but the entire world. So here we are. On one road, conflict, tariffs, mistrust, a fractured world. On the other, cooperation, respect, partnership, a stronger democracy. And the truth, my friends, is this: the decision is not about economics. It is not even about geopolitics. It is about vision. Can America accept India as an equal? Can India trust America as a partner? Can both rise above pride to embrace partnership? A long pause, because if they can rise together, the 21st century will not be shaped by authoritarian powers. It will not be defined by division. It will be led by democracy. But if they cannot, if pride and mistrust prevail, then history will record this moment as a lost chance. A chance when the world's two largest democracies stood at the door of history and chose to walk away. And that is the choice before us. Now, I know the dangers. If America treats India like a pawn, it will lose India's trust. If India clings too tightly to suspicion, it will lose America's partnership. Pride on one side, resentment on the other, and slowly, carefully, step by step, they will drift apart. And history will not be kind. History will ask, why did two great democracies with so much in common choose rivalry instead of partnership? A pause, a history will ask, why did they allow authoritarian regimes to unite while democracies divided? And the answer will be silence. My friends, history has a way of testing nations, testing their resolve, testing their vision, testing whether they will rise together or fall apart. And today, make no mistake, the test is here. The test is real. The test is called the future of the United States and India. A long pause. Now, I want to speak plainly. This is not just about trade. It's not just about tariffs. It's not just about who gets a bigger slice of the economic pie. No. This is about something far greater. This is about whether the world's two largest democracies can stand shoulder to shoulder when the stakes are highest. Because let's be clear, if America and India falter, if mistrust divides them, then the world will not wait. China will not wait. Russia will not wait. Authoritarians will not wait. They will seize that vacuum. They will step into that space. And the democratic dream, the belief that free nations can lead, will fade. Pause. But if America and India rise together, if they choose cooperation, respect, and equality, then the world will see something extraordinary. They will see that democracy is not just words, not just votes, not just slogans. Democracy can deliver, but it doesn't have to be that way, because there is another path, a better path. A path where America listens and respects. A path where India trusts and engages. A path where they do not see each other as competitors, but as partners. Think about what that means. It means trade that lifts millions out of poverty. It means technology that connects billions to opportunity. It means defense that protects, not provokes. It means diplomacy that unites, not divides. And yes, it means something bigger than economics. It means the world's two largest democracies showing the planet that democracy is not in decline, that democracy is not weak, that democracy can rise. Imagine this 20 years from now, children in America and children in India look back at this very moment, and they say, yes, this was the turning point. This was when two great nations chose not to fight, but to rise together. They will say, this was the moment when democracy proved it could lead in the 21st century. And I want you to picture that world. A world where America and India work together to combat climate change. A world where they build trade systems that are fair and inclusive. A world where they secure the Indo-Pacific, not for domination, but for freedom. A world where billions see that cooperation, not conflict, is the future. A long pause, that world is within reach, but only if America and India choose it. So here is the choice. On one hand, rivalry, pride, division, a path that leads to a fractured world, to lost trust, to democracy in retreat. On the other hand, cooperation, partnership, equality, a path that leads to prosperity, to stability, to democracy renewed. And the question before us, the question history will record, is simple: which path will they choose? Oh, pause. Well, for the United States, for India, for the world, the answer cannot be rivalry. It cannot be mistrust. It cannot be arrogance. The answer must be cooperation. Because in the end, this is not just about two nations. This is about the idea that free nations, diverse nations, democratic nations can rise above pride and rise together. And if America and India can do that, if they can walk this path, then they will not just shape their own destiny. They will shape the destiny of the world. So I say to Washington, treat India not as a pawn, but as a partner. I say to New Delhi, treat America not as a threat, but as an ally. I say to both, remember that the world is watching. And I say to all who doubt, democracy is not done. Democracy is not broken. Democracy is not weak. Because if the United States and India can rise together, then democracy will rise with them. A long pause. Oh, and that, my friends, is the choice. That is the moment. That is the turning point. May they choose wisely.